All right, so today we're gonna dive deep into some pretty fascinating stuff.
Definitely.
We're talking UAPs,
That's right.
unidentified aerial phenomena, you know?
UFOs.
Exactly. We've got some wild reports to dig into.
Yeah, from some pretty reputable sources, too.
Yeah, we've got 60 Minutes, CBS News, even NJ.com got in on this.
Well, that last one might surprise some folks.
It might, but, well, you'll see why when we get there.
Can't wait.
So we're focusing on a really well-known case.
Oh, yeah, this one's a classic.
It's called the TICTAC Incident.
One of the most baffling UFO sightings out there, for sure.
And what makes it so interesting is that it wasn't just some random person seeing lights in the sky.
Oh, no, not at all.
This involved highly trained U.S. Navy pilots.
The real deal.
So their account is what kind of kicked off this whole renewed interest in UFOs.
Definitely, and what the government might actually know about them.
Exactly. So let's go back to November 2004.
Okay.
The USS NIMITZ carrier strike group is just doing routine training exercises
Standards.
right off the coast of Southern California.
This is pretty normal so far.
It does until two F-18 pilots, Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich.
Okay.
They spot something totally out of the ordinary on their radar.
Like what?
They see multiple unidentified aircraft.
Multiple.
Yeah, and get this, they're descending from 80,000 feet.
Wow. That's high up.
It is, and they're making this descent in less than a second.
Less than a second.
You heard that, right? I mean, that kind of speed and maneuverability.
Just unheard of.
Exactly. It's not possible with our current tech.
Or physics, for that matter.
So we know something's moving incredibly fast.
Right.
But what did they actually see?
Yeah, what is this thing?
Well, both Fravor and Dietrich, they describe it as a white, oval-shaped object.
Okay. So like a...
They say it was hovering above the water,
Hmm.
and it was about the size of an F-18 fighter jet.
Oh, wow. So not small.
Not at all. But here's the weird part.
What's that?
It had no markings, no wings, no exhaust plumes.
Like nothing.
Nothing at all.
So strange.
It was so bizarre that they nicknamed it the TICTAC because of its shape.
I mean, I could see it.
Right? I mean, when you hear TICTAC, you kind of get a picture in your head.
Definitely.
So, I gotta ask, when Fravor got a closer look, did this TICTAC thing just sit there?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Out of me.
So as Fravor approached the object, it started mirroring his movements.
Hearing his movements.
Yeah, like copying him.
Whoa.
I know, right?
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, it just accelerated at an unbelievable speed and vanished.
Gone.
Poof. Just like that.
Wait, so it just disappeared?
Yep. No trace.
You're kidding?
Nope. Well, not quite.
Oh.
So moments later, the TICTAC was detected 60 miles away.
60 miles.
Yeah, by the USS Princeton, which was also part of the training group.
Hold on, so this thing traveled 60 miles in like an instant.
Pretty much. That's the level of technology we can't even wrap our heads around.
It really makes you question everything.
It does.
Like, what are we even doing?
Right.
Okay, 60 miles in an instant.
That's the story.
That's mind-blowing. So the Navy had to launch a full-scale investigation, right?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
I mean, come on.
But that's not what happened.
What?
Well, not at first anyway.
Really?
Yeah, for years, the incident was basically ignored.
Ignored.
Yeah, they just swept it under the rug.
That's crazy.
It wasn't until much later that the Navy's stance on this whole UFO thing started to change.
So what changed their minds?
Well, I think the TICTAC encounter definitely had something to do with it.
I mean, how could it not?
Right. But there were also other reports coming in.
Other reports.
Yeah, and eventually they just couldn't ignore it anymore.
I guess that makes sense.
There were just too many credible accounts, many from military personnel.
Wow.
And this shift in attitude led to the creation of something called the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force.
What is that?
It's a group specifically dedicated to investigating these sightings.
Interesting. So the Navy finally realized they needed to take this seriously.
Yeah, it seems like they finally admitted that something unusual was happening.
So years after that encounter with the TICTAC, what happened to Commander Fravor?
Well, in 2023, Fravor actually testified before Congress about his sighting.
Wow. He went on record.
He did. And he stated very clearly that what he witnessed was beyond our current tech.
Wow. That's a powerful statement coming from a pilot like him.
It is. It suggests that we might be dealing with something truly groundbreaking.
So Fravor goes public, but was he the only one?
No, he wasn't.
Oh,
Lieutenant Commander Dietrich, the other pilot involved, she also went public.
interesting. What did she say?
She talked about how unsettling the whole thing was, how they couldn't classify the object.
It just defied explanation.
Yeah, exactly. And keep in mind, these are highly trained, experienced pilots.
Right, they know what they're doing.
Exactly. They don't get fooled easily.
So when they say something's out of the ordinary, it's worth listening to.
For sure.
Absolutely. It's one thing for someone to see something strange and not be able to explain it,
Right.
but when you have multiple trained observers all reporting the same thing,
That changes things.
totally, it adds a whole new level of credibility.
Definitely.
So we have these firsthand accounts. What did the experts think about all this?
Oh, they were definitely intrigued. One expert in particular, Christopher Mellon.
Who's that?
He's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence.
Okay, so he knows his stuff.
He does. And he suggested that the TICTAC's capabilities, they point to technology that's just far exceeding anything we have.
So we're not talking like slightly better radar or faster jets here.
No,
We're talking a whole new level.
a potential leap in technology. I mean, it could revolutionize everything we know about physics and engineering.
That's insane. Did the TICTAC incident lead to any official investigations?
It did. The Pentagon started releasing these annual reports.
On UAPs?
Yeah, and in their 2024 report, they acknowledged 21 cases
Wow.
that had what they called anomalous characteristics.
Anomalous characteristics? What does that even mean?
Basically, things they couldn't explain.
Even with all their fancy tech and science.
Exactly. Even they were stumped.
21 cases they couldn't explain. That's got to be significant.
Oh, it is. Especially coming from the Pentagon.
So did these reports give any clues about what makes these UAP sightings so anomalous?
They did. They described one case where a UAP was tracked on multiple radar systems,
Okay.
and it was moving at hypersonic speeds. But get this, with no visible propulsion system.
No propulsion.
None at all. So like no wings, no engines.
Nothing.
That's impossible.
It defies everything we know about how aircraft work.
So even the Pentagon's top scientists are baffled.
Pretty much.
It makes you wonder what we're dealing with here.
It really does.
Okay, so we've got these eyewitness accounts, expert opinions, and now even the government is admitting they can't explain some of these UAPs.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. So what happened next? Did anything else develop?
Well, you might be wondering why the government's suddenly so interested in UAPs.
I am, actually.
It seems like the sheer number of credible reports, especially from military personnel, it forced them to acknowledge that something strange is going on.
That makes sense. Right. And this led to Congress holding hearings on UAPs.
Congressional hearings.
Yeah, and they had multiple witnesses, including former government officials.
Okay.
And they claimed that UAPs are real
Wow.
and that the government might be hiding information.
Hiding information like a cover-up.
That's what some people believe.
That sounds like a conspiracy theory. Did anyone make any specific claims?
Well, one guy, David Grush, he's a former intelligence officer.
Okay.
He testified before Congress, and he dropped a bombshell.
What did he say?
He alleged that the government's been secretly recovering materials from crashed UAPs.
Crashed UAPs?
Wow.
I know, right? That's a huge claim.
So what were these recovered materials? Did he elaborate?
He did, and what he said was even more startling.
Oh, boy.
He claimed that some of this material included non-human biologics.
Non-human biologics?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
It sounds like alien remains or tech.
Alien stuff. Are we talking about aliens here?
That's what he implied, and it raises some big questions.
Like what? Like, are some of these UAPs not just advanced tech, but something totally different? Something not from this planet?
That's a lot to process. Did anyone challenge him on this?
Well, it's important to remember that this is just one person's claim.
Right.
So far, there hasn't been any independent verification.
So no hard evidence.
Not yet.
So we have all these testimonies and reports, but still, no concrete proof of aliens or a government cover-up.
That's the thing with UAPs. It's all a bit of a mystery.
It's like we have pieces of the puzzle, but we're missing the big picture.
Exactly. We've got videos, radar data, eyewitness accounts.
But no smoking gun.
Right. And I think that's what keeps this topic so interesting.
Definitely, it's a mix of compelling evidence and the possibility that something truly extraordinary is happening.
And speaking of compelling evidence, did you hear about what happened in New Jersey?
Oh, yeah, the drone sightings.
In December 2024.
Right. It's crazy how we go from Navy pilots encountering a TICTAC in 2004 to these unexplained drones buzzing around 2 decades later.
It makes you wonder if they're connected somehow.
Could be a pattern we're missing.
Maybe. But the FBI investigated those drone sightings, and guess what?
What?
They couldn't figure out who was behind them or what their purpose was.
So even with all our tech and resources, we're still stumped.
It seems that way.
Are we seeing more UAP activity, or are we just more aware of it now?
It's hard to say for sure.
Okay.
There are a few factors at play. For sure. Increased media attention plays a role. The more we talk about UAPs, the more likely people are to report what they see.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We also have more government transparency now with official reports and hearings. It's bringing the topic into the mainstream.
So it could be a combo of more UAPs, more awareness, and more people willing to come forward.
Exactly.
It's definitely a fascinating and evolving situation.
It is.
But what does it all mean? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, it really feels like things are changing.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
We've gone from, those grainy photos and like whispers in the dark
Right.
to like actual congressional hearings and government reports. It's crazy.
It's definitely out in the open now.
So let's kind of recap what we've learned in our deep dive into the TICTAC UFO and everything else.
Sounds good.
So we started with Commander Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Dietrich back in 2004.
Right. Their encounter
They saw something that seemed impossible.
defied the laws of physics.
Exactly, something that challenged our understanding of technology,
It really makes you wonder what's possible.
And their story isn't unique, right?
No, not at all.
We've heard from other pilots, radar operators, even government officials.
It seems like everyone's seeing something.
There's so much evidence that something weird is happening in our skies.
Yeah, it's not just a few isolated incidents anymore.
And the government's reaction has totally changed.
Oh, absolutely.
They went from dismissing it to creating task forces, releasing reports,
And even holding those congressional hearings.
We've come a long way.
We have.
We also talked about some of the more controversial stuff, like those claims of recovered materials and government cover-ups.
Oh, yeah. That's where things get really interesting.
But we have to remember that those claims still need to be verified.
Definitely. We can't just take them at face value.
Right, like what David Grush said about those non-human biologics.
Right. We need more evidence.
But even with a healthy dose of skepticism,
There's still so much to think about.
there is the tic-tac, the drones, the government reports.
All of it.
It points to something more than just misidentified balloons or drones.
For sure. These aren't just your everyday objects.
Right, we're talking about things moving in ways that our technology just can't.
Disappearing and reappearing like it's nothing.
It's wild.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it makes you wonder if we're not alone in the universe.
That's the ultimate question, isn't
It is, and the TICTAC incident at least made us realize that we might not have all the answers.
It's a good reminder that there's still so much we don't know.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this.
Okay.
If the TICTAC was like a glimpse into some super advanced technology,
Right.
what does that mean for the future?
What happens when these encounters become even more common?
That's a good question.
I mean, maybe these encounters will lead to incredible discoveries.
Right, like new tech or new physics.
Or maybe they'll change how we see ourselves in the universe.
It's definitely a new era of exploration and discovery.
It is. And it's exciting to see where it all leads.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of UAPs.
It's been a pleasure.